While electric vehicles are becoming more affordable thanks in part to the fact that there are more EVs on the used car market than there were a few years ago, there's still not a huge number of truly affordable new EVs on the market in most of the world. And as we've noted many times before on this channel, while you can now get many new EVs of between $30,000 and $40,000 or equivalent, that is still very much out of the price range of a large proportion of the population. That is, if you follow the standard recommendation that no more than between 10 and 15% of your net income should go towards your car payment, with 20% seen as an absolute maximum unless you're someone with super low housing costs. Right now, of course, it's something of a buyer's market if you're looking to get behind the wheel of a brand new EV. Sure, auto interest loan rates might be a bit of a pill to swallow, but when it comes to deals to be made, pretty much everyone from Tesla to Ford are offering some incredible deals on new EVs, deals that can dramatically lower the effective pricing of your new car. And if you're looking for a budget-friendly EV, some rumours online suggest that cars like the now discontinued Chevrolet Bolt EV can still be found in some parts of the country with discounts large enough to give you an effective price into the teens rather than the 20s. Those willing to get behind the wheel of a brand new Nissan Leaf can also enjoy a massive discount for a new model compared to previous model years, with prices in the mid-20s if you happen to live in the right place and have access to the right discounts and incentives. But now there's a new lower-priced EV on the market in the US, a car that's available today for less than $25,000. It comes with fast charging, a reasonable range per charge for the price, and onboard tech that, once you've got past its quirks, could be something you could live with. The big catch? It's from an automaker which might not be around for much longer. That's right. Earlier this week, EV startup Fisker, the second of two plug-in car companies named after its CEO and founder, automotive design legend Henrik Fisker, announced that it was slashing the cost of its Ocean SUV, with its entry-level Ocean Sport EV getting a $14,000 price cut, and its most expensive variant, the Extreme, getting a $24,000 price cut. This not only means that the Ocean EV is now officially, for now at least, the most affordable EV you can buy in the US, but it's also probably one of the most unusual new EVs you can buy, given that Fisker hasn't sold huge numbers of Oceans and, according to the company from earlier this month, has about 4,700 vehicles currently in inventory. And while it would be great to assume that the Ocean EV was getting a price cut due to increased economies of scale or some major cash saving at the production level, the reality is that, while not officially being termed as such, it is to all intents and purposes a bit of a fire sale designed to give Fisker some much-needed cash in the bank. For those unaware of the last few months of news from Fisker, the company not only failed to file its Form 10K on time with the US federal government, but also defaulted on a loan repayment, had a rumoured deal with a large automaker fall through, said automaker was supposedly Nissan, and halted all production of vehicles. Then, earlier this week, Fisker was unceremoniously delisted from the stock exchange after all of the above had just happened. But taking all of that into mind, we're going to examine this lower pricing for the Fisker Ocean Sport, give you some background, and examine what history can teach us about buying an EV from a company in financial difficulty. The car first. It's a mid-sized, 5-seat SUV that some reviewers have compared in design language to the Range Rover Evoque, and to some extent I can see the similarities. It's a good-looking car with solar panels on the roof and a well-proportioned design that promises luxury and refinement from afar. Fisker has long claimed that it's the most sustainable SUV on Earth, something I've not spent any time to verify, but I can tell you that it's also not made by Fisker. Instead, it's made by a contract manufacturing partner, Magnus Steyr, at a carbon-neutral production facility in the city of Graz, Austria. In case you're unfamiliar, while most automakers do make their own vehicles, it's actually kind of common for small volume vehicles and sometimes models that require specialist production that wouldn't be easy on a traditional production line to be made by a third-party specialist company on behalf of the automaker. Magna Steyr is one of the best known of contract manufacturers in the industry, and it's worked with plenty of different companies during its history on a variety of pretty influential and popular vehicles. On paper, Fisker's decision to go with contract manufacturing rather than in-house production was a phenomenally good idea. It's not only allowed Fisker to get vehicles off the line far more quickly than would otherwise have been able to achieve using a traditional production line, but it also eliminated a lot of the risks associated with bringing a new vehicle to market. And given that prior to transitioning into the EV space, Henrik Fisker was responsible for some truly legendary designs, some of which were contract manufactured. The Aston Martin DB9, BMW Z8 and Ford Shelby GR1 are just among them, and it's a given that he's viewed contract manufacturing as a smart choice to get the current iteration of the Fisker off the ground. And yes, for completeness here, the first plug-in company Fisker started had a pretty tumultuous history in its early years and itself had to deal with some quality controls issues for its plug-in hybrid sports car. It ended up passing through multiple owners after Henrik and the company parted ways, with the original IP ultimately ending up with the company now known as Karma Automotive, after the name of the original plug-in hybrid sports car that Fisker designed, the Fisker Karma sedan. That was a mouthful. The entry-level Fisker Ocean, known as the Ocean Sport, is offered with a single-motor front-wheel drive configuration and 72 kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's good for an official EPA range of 231 miles, which is 371 kilometres, although I should note, as usual, your mileage will vary. Depending on the market you're in, you'll get up to 11 kilowatts of onboard AC charging capability, while fast charging claims to support up to 250 kilowatts at compatible fast charge stations. Inside, the car features a very similar screen setup to the Ford Mustang Mach-E, with a large portrait touchscreen display in the centre console and a small widescreen display acting as a driver information display behind the wheel. So far, so good. But those who have driven the Fisker Ocean have all come away with some mixed opinions. Sadly, I've not had any wheel time with the Fisker, and while I have had some wonderful offers from some of you lovely people who do own one, we've not yet had a chance to schedule time. Given that I'm making the video now, I doubt that we'll ever get an official Fisker loan, but maybe we'll still get a chance to do an owner-loaned review, so watch this space. The most critical to date comes from Marques Brownlee, aka MKBHD on YouTube. He is a long-time EV driver and Tesla customer, and was, to put it bluntly, pretty irritated with how the Ocean drove and how its in-car infotainment system operated when he reviewed it earlier this year. Some people are going as far as to suggest that it was his super critical review, posted on a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, which was the final Jenga brick pull that caused Fisker to arrive at the point it is today. But honestly, I think that's putting too much on one person, however good MKBHD is. And if you consider that pretty much every outlet who has driven the Ocean has been polite at best and scathing at worse, I'd argue the car has had problems for some time. What kind of problems? Well, first, Fisker launched the Ocean with many of the promised features inactive. But that isn't just a Fisker thing. We've seen everyone from Tesla to Ford, Chevrolet and many others promise features in a new vehicle that were rolled out after launch because they either weren't developed in time for production launch or because there were issues in the final testing phases of whatever software it was. But the features that were active on reviewers' cars were also not well behaved, meaning, just like the much maligned software of the Chevrolet Blazer EV and Cadillac Lyriq, early customers and reviewers spent a lot of time trying to get things working when they should have just been driving and using the actual car. If all of that isn't putting you off buying an Ocean, that's great. I've done my job properly. At the end of the day, you should always take time to test drive a new vehicle before deciding to spend your hard-earned money on it. And you should never just base your opinions on what one single person online has said. So let's assume you aren't bothered by the software glitches, you're drawn to the price and the decent charging capabilities, the design aesthetic, and according to many reviewers, comfortable interior. And the range suits your needs, especially if you can get one at $25,000 US. So, should you? Is it a great deal? At this point, I want to acknowledge that the answer really does depend on your skill level, your penchant for unusual cars, and your willingness to take risks. And while I'm not a financial advisor, I want to be very clear about the fact that given Fisker is in some pretty obvious financial stress at this point, any vehicle you purchase comes with a much greater than 0% chance that at some point in the near future, should something happen to your EV, you might struggle to find after-sales service. And to go along with that, while I'm not a legal advisor, it is unlikely in the event that something bad does happen and Fisker closes shop, which again is a now non-zero chance, that a third-party company will be contracted to provide as much after-sales support and warranty service as legally required, but nothing more. It also means that if you end up getting in an accident or something large and expensive requires a warranty replacement, you might either have your car in the shop for weeks or months, just waiting for parts, or you simply won't be able to get a replacement, forcing a buyback of your vehicle, or in the case of a collision, an insurance write-off. And look, it's not just a startup EV problem. When General Motors decided to pull out of Europe nearly a decade ago, I was one of a few hundred Chevrolet Volt, that's Volt with a V owner, who found that GM sales and service kinda dried up in Europe. By the time I moved to the US in 2015, there were left just 2 dealerships in the entire UK who were certified to work on a Chevrolet Volt. And when we needed a replacement part after a motorcycle lost control and hit the front end of my wife's Volt, it took nearly a month for the replacement part to come over from the US. And yes, I am talking about Volts, not Amperas, which were still pretty well supported with multiple dealerships willing to work on them in most major towns. And even though the Volt and the Ampera were identical underneath, Vauxhall dealers would not touch the Chevrolet Volt because they weren't allowed to. And if that doesn't put you off, the chances are that you are an enthusiast with some degree of technical expertise who isn't scared by an out-of-production, unsupported EV. One of us! One of us! And if that sounds like you, then great. Frankly, if I had the time and the money and a place to store one, I would myself be tempted to get one at that kind of price. But unlike most YouTubers, I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank because we don't YouTube like most people YouTube. I'm not trying to be self-deprecating either. I mean, owning and maintaining no longer made low-volume production vehicles, especially EVs, takes a special type of grit and determination, something I have learned multiple times over the years, owning vehicles that have long been out of production, including my first-generation Toyota RAV4 EV, my City L, my G-Wiz, and of course my Volkswagen City Stroma. I have a huge amount of respect for Robert from Aging Wheels, who has taken on board multiple Coda sedans from the early 2010s. Do you remember them? Is working on rebuilding a very temperamental, highway-capable Wego, has a middle-aged twike that he just purchased, and also just recently acquired not one, but 2 early production Electromechanica Solos, the Canadian-made ones of which very few were sold, but are also the only version of Electromechanica Solos to have avoided the recent total buyback of later generation models for issues that meant that they were unsafe on the road. If you can watch Robert's channel and enjoy that kind of tinkering, and you think you'd like to do that yourself, I think the Ocean might be a great car for you. But if you watch his channel and you're like, nah, Or maybe you love the design and you're all on owning a quirky, unusual EV from a design legend, but you're not willing to put in the extra work to look after it. Don't. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're looking at all of this expecting that you're going to buy an EV that will continue to be supported and usable and drivable for decades into the future, I'm going to be completely blunt. You probably want to stick to a brand that's got a little more shelf life. While I am personally hopeful that Fisker continues and that its vehicles continue to be produced and that something amazing happens to allow this, I'm also painfully aware and cognizant that in the quickly approaching 20 years of covering the EV world, I've learned that when a company gets this close to bad things happening, it is unusual it bounces back as if nothing has happened. Sure, there are a few companies that perennially seem to be on the brink and manage to somehow keep going, whatever happens. But even those companies sometimes suffer issues with after-sales service, usually caused, in fact, by small production volumes, changes during production, and a lack of staff to deal with things when the metaphorical poo finally starts flying. After all, some of the EVs sold a decade ago by large automakers are frankly now becoming a pain to maintain unless you are either very knowledgeable and handy yourself, happen to know a local independent specialist who knows all the tricks and tips, or have a nearby dealership where there are staff on hand who have been working on those vehicles since they first launched. For many people, just driving a Mitsubishi i-MiEV or a Chevrolet Spark is, frankly, a massive pill. And many, many more of both of those vehicles were made during their production lifetimes when you look at the Fisker Ocean. So there you have it. My 2p for what it's worth. And if you are a Fisker owner, I would love to see what your opinions of this particularly troubling piece of financial news are for Fisker. Leave your thoughts below. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people that help make this channel possible by funding it through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure we can be 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, $10.08 a year. A massive welcome to our newest supporters, Ralph Koenig, Mr. Eldritch, Dwayne Adiger, and Corey Singletray. To join our list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your week of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll also find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at. The address is listed below. And of course, if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store link in the down below as well. This month, we are celebrating Wrangling EV FUD with a fantastic t-shirt design by our in-house artist and animator, Erin. Get yours today by heading to our Redbubble store. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think that this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.